Alright guys, so today's video is going to be a little bit different. We're going to talk about a new speaker from Turtlebox, and Turtlebox has always been one of those companies that I've been intrigued by, but it's kind of like a lifestyle type of speaker. Even in their advertisements, you see them like camping or at the beach or out fishing. So it's made, to kind of go with that outdoor vibe. And so today they've released their newest speaker, which is the Turtlebox Cub, and it kind of falls in between two speakers they already have. So the normal one, or the classic or original or whatever they call it, and then they have one called the Ranger, which is a much smaller speaker. But the Turtlebox Cub, even though it is smaller than the original, it definitely outputs quite a bit of sound. Now, as far as pricing, it does come in at $330. It puts it about $100 cheaper than just the original Turtlebox speaker. But I think a lot of people are going to be intrigued by this, not only because of the size, but because it also outputs just this insane amount of sound. But if you are interested in checking this speaker out, it is available in 4 different colors. They have a white version, a black version, a beige version, and then I have the orange version here. I think that's kind of like the staple for Turtlebox speakers. That was the first one that I had ever seen. Now, the big selling points on this type of speaker is it is IP67. It's saying that it's waterproof for both fresh water and salt water. Again, that goes back to the lifestyle of fishing. If you're going to use these outdoors and you're going to be saltwater fishing, if you're going to take it to the beach, you don't have to worry about that. Or if you're in a lake or river or whatever, you don't have to worry about that either, because on top of being freshwater and saltwater proof, it also floats. So if you knock it off the boat or knock it into the pool, it's just going to float on top of the water, so you don't have to worry it's going to sink and you're going to lose your speaker. But if you are also kind of worried about that, there are spots on the side of the speakers where you can clip a carabiner clip, and so you can kind of have a strap, or if you want to attach it to the boat somehow, that way you don't have to worry about it just flying out or lose it that type of way. Now, the speaker itself, as far as dimensions, it's about 7 inches by 7 inches by 6 inches. It's almost like a perfect little cube. But if you want to count the handle on the top, it puts it at about 8.5 inches tall. So a fairly small speaker. You can see on the bottom of the speaker, it has the grips for the feet, and then on the back, it also has those silicone grips as well. So you can lay it on its back, you can lay it down like this, you can use it in those different kind of ways, and that just kind of keeps it from moving around. The whole body, though, as a whole, it is plastic, but it says that it is also drop proof and crush proof and all of these different things, and I'm sure that it is, but that's just something I'm not comfortable testing on a $330 speaker. But again, maybe it's peace of mind. You do knock it down a somewhat of a cliff and it hits some rocks on the way down, that maybe it can withstand some things like that. Again, that's not something I want to test. The speaker that's in here is a 4.75 or 4 3/4 inch speaker. But mixing that with the amp that they have in here, they are pushing this speaker to some pretty extreme levels, which we'll kind of talk about that once we get to the sound. There are some control buttons up top. You have your power button, you have your volume up and down, you have your track forward and the ability to go back to the previous track. And then it has your Bluetooth pairing button. It has a stereo pairing button. So if you have 2 of these and you want to do a left and right, you can do that. And then it has a party mode button if you want to connect a bunch of these. And then it's just playing all the same thing out of each speaker. It's not trying to be a left speaker or a right speaker. They're just all doing the same thing. Now, as far as charging this speaker, I was kind of surprised that it just came with like a normal USB-C cable. It does have a little flap that covers the USB-C port on the back. Obviously, this is to help keep it be waterproof. I don't necessarily like the design choice of the USB-C port because they make it where you kind of have to use their cable if you don't, have one that's made pretty flush. Like, it doesn't give you a lot of breathing room for where the cable actually plugs in. So the cable that it comes with works fine, but I had several different USB-C cables that I always use that I tried to plug into here, and it wouldn't fit because the outer housing just didn't allow it to go through. So that's just kind of a nitpicking thing, but I just like it when companies leave it where you can just use whatever cable that you might already have. Now we can get into the sound, because this is what you would really want this speaker for. And whatever amp that they're using in conjunction with the speaker that's in here, this is such a loud speaker. When I first started testing it, which was indoors in my office, I really couldn't even get near halfway with volume because of how loud it is. It's definitely made, obviously, to be used outdoors. Now, one thing that I did notice is when you're turning the volume up, when you go up from one notch to the next, the volume itself actually jumps quite a bit. It's not one of those like subtle, little jumps in between each press. I mean, it definitely takes quite a bit of a jump. And so again, I think it's more geared towards outdoors, but it can fill any size room, even an extremely large room. But even outdoors, it is still such a loud speaker. And the bass that this speaker has is very impressive. It definitely competes with like the larger JBL speakers that have the like radiator ports on the side. This doesn't have all that, and somehow it still has that same impact of bass. Now, I am going to say that it does kind of give the sound a little bit of warmth overall. So it's not one of those that's like overly bright. There's still a lot of details. I didn't never feel like I was missing out on the mids or the treble, but you can tell like the bass is the star of the show. It's made to have that punchy feel, and they're doing this because if you're going to use these outdoors, you have to kind of bump up the bass quite a bit, because that's where a lot of speakers lose their low end, because you can turn a speaker very loud outdoors, and then normally you just hear vocals and you can hear, different instruments and things like that, but the bass kind of gets lost in an outdoor environment. It definitely does not get lost in this speaker. But I am going to say, depending on how loud you listen to this speaker, it will kind of affect the battery life. It rates it getting about 14 hours or maybe just slightly over 14 hours on a full charge. That's at about 50% volume or a little less than that. So if you're going to, listen to this at full blast, definitely expect to get less battery life. But I still feel like, the 14 hours is very impressive considering the amp and the speaker and the amount of power that it's putting out of here. So it's not as much battery life as some of the other speakers that's going to have a similar size or maybe even larger size than it. So my overall opinion is this. If you're just looking for a speaker indoors, like for your bedroom or your office or something like that, I don't really think that's what this speaker is geared towards, although I have enjoyed using it in my office, but I just don't feel like I'm using it to its full potential while I'm in my office because I'm listening to it at a lower volume. But as soon as you take it outdoors and as soon as you use it for what they advertise it for, if you're out, again, camping or at the beach or by the pool or at, a ball game, it's impressive what this speaker can do, and it just doesn't take up a lot of space in the rest of your cart or your bag or whatever that you're carrying with. And it really has its own handle, so you don't have to throw it in with those things. You can just carry it around like it is. It does have some decent amount of weight to it, but I don't think anybody's really going to have an issue holding this speaker. So I'm impressed. I'm glad that I finally picked up my first Turtlebox speaker. It's making it very intriguing to check out even the much smaller speaker and see what it can actually output, because the sheer amount of power this tiny speaker has definitely impressed me. But if you are interested in checking out the Turtlebox Cub, I will have it linked in the description. But guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. Thank you so much for checking out all the other videos. And as always, make sure to stay tuned for more.